If you have a pension in retirement, you are either drastically undersaving or drastically oversaving in retirement accounts. You see, the undersaver thinks in their head, hey, the pension's got it covered. I don't need to save for retirement. The oversaver is saving dollars just like someone that doesn't have a pension, and they're risking time with family or vacations or whatever it is in your situation that you sacrifice in order to put dollars into retirement savings that you never needed to save. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to calculate what your pension is really worth, and I bet it surprises you. And stick around to the end because I'm gonna show you how to calculate exactly how much you should be saving if you have a pension in retirement. So let's jump in. Let's figure out what a pension is really worth to you, because I think it will surprise you. So when we think about a pension, it's really hard to put a number to it because it's just some sort of a projection to you that says, hey, at some point in time in retirement, at a different age, we're gonna give you this much money in retirement every month, right? There's no statement with a lump sum balance that you look at or an app to log in and see, hey, what's my account doing today? It's just, maybe once a year they send you something, or every 5 years you decide to log into your benefits center and figure out what your pension is going to be. And I think that it will surprise you. And so what we have found, of course, this is a rough estimation, but for every dollar in income that you'd be getting for your pension is worth about $25 invested. So if we're comparing a pension to a lump sum, money that you've been saving in a 401k, $1 of income is worth about $25 inside of that 401k. So if your pension is going to be $3,000 per month, if you equate that to what you would need inside of a 401k to get that $3,000 a month, it's about $900,000, right? And so I meet with folks all the time that say, hey, I've got this pension and it's not much, and I kind of think I should have saved some more for retirement and whatnot, and they think they're way behind. But the truth is their company's been putting money into that pension for them, and it's worth a lot more than what they actually think. So if you got a $3,000 a month pension, think, hey, I got about 900-ish grand in a 401k, or that would be roughly the equivalent. If it's $6,000 a month, double it. Now you got 1.8, or the rough calculations of equivalent of 1.8 million inside of a 401k. So I'm here to tell you that pensions are worth more than what a lot of people think, and we don't want to underestimate what a pension can do for us. I just said that if you got $3,000 a month coming in for a pension, it's roughly the equivalent of someone that's got $900,000 in a 401k. But you know what that $900,000 in a 401k can't do, right? It can't necessarily guarantee or take away that longevity risk, meaning your pension is going to continue to pay you until you pass away in most cases, right? And so that can help to take some of the longevity risk, or in other words, you living too long, off of the table. The other thing that pension is doing for you, kind of silently, that people don't even think about, is most pensions have what we call survivorship benefits or spousal benefits, okay? We kind of can say those a couple of different ways, but basically what that means is if you're married and you pass away, that pension will either pay out everything it's been paying or a portion of everything it's been paying until both you and your spouse, you and your wife, in my case, my wife, pass away. And so not only is that pension maybe worth a little more than you think, it's doing a couple of things kind of silently in the background that you don't really even know, and also helping to protect your spouse. All right, so if you need help figuring out what your pension is worth, we've made a toolkit, and it's got a lot of information, not just specific to what your pension's worth, but talking through different retirement planning things. You can grab that toolkit down there in the description below. Now, maybe not so silently, but some pensions out there have what we call a COLA, or a cost of living increase on them. And if you have one of those, you're a lucky one, because that is the best of the best, right? You've got a monthly income stream coming in that is going up every month and adjusting for inflation as it goes. And that's something that is really beneficial to you in the long run, not only just keeping up with inflation, but working against that longevity risk as well. So don't underestimate the pension and what it's actually worth to you, but don't rely on it 100% in retirement. Because what we need to do in order to figure out, hey, I have a pension coming in, how much money do I need to be saving along the way for retirement on top of that, is a really important question, one that we've got to get answered. One last thing to think about before we calculate what your number should be in terms of saving for retirement with a pension. And that is this: not all pensions are necessarily created equally, okay? Some pensions, if you're a government employee, are funded by the government or by the taxpayers, right? Some of them are more privately funded and there's money held in a trust and things like that. And so what I'm trying to say here is you should be asking the questions of how well funded and how well invested, or who's taking care of this money in a pension. Because there are situations where pension funds can not work out the way we hope they would. Now, in most cases, the government-funded pensions, or when I say government-funded, I'm talking taxpayer-funded pensions. If you work for a government entity, that's considered to be something that's fairly safe. But the privately funded pensions, which there are a lot of them, and not all of them are bad by any means, but it's just something to know and something to ask about. Hey, how's the pension funded? How do we feel about how it's invested? And how do we feel about the people taking care of that and the fact that I'm going to continue to get a check for the rest of my life and or potentially my spouse's wife as well? Okay, so when we think about calculating that number that we're going to need to save, then or the bucket of money that we're going to need to save for retirement in addition to our pension, there's basically 3 different numbers that we need to know in order to do that. So the first number is simply, what are our expenses? In other words, when we get to retirement, how much money are we going to need to live on a monthly basis or annually, however you want to do it, okay? Then we also need to know, what are our guaranteed streams of income? So that would be your pension. That would also be Social Security, all right? And we need to subtract those against each other and find out what your gap is. Let's say we need $7,000 per month to live on and to do all the things that we want to do. And then let's say between pension, let's say our pension's like $3,500 and Social Security is $2,000. Okay, so between the two of those, we've got a guaranteed $5,500 coming in every month, right? So 7,000 minus 5,500 means we've got a $1,500 gap that we would need to fill in retirement. And so now we need to say, okay, in order to be able to get $1,500 a month in retirement on top of my pension, on top of my Social Security, how much money do I need saved in retirement accounts in order to do that? And if we go back to the 4% rule, that 4% rule means that we would only need about $450,000 saved in retirement accounts to cover that $1,500 gap. Not $1 million, not $2 million, $450,000 inside of retirement accounts on top of your pension to cover your $1,500 gap. Because if we use that 4% rule on $450,000, then that equals roughly that $1,500 per month. And so that's where I think a lot of people could drastically oversave, because they're talking to their buddy next door and they're saying, hey, I got $1 million or I got $2 million saved for retirement, but they don't have a pension, okay? Same household without a pension would need a lot more money. Here's the math on that. We still got $7,000 a month that we need, but we don't have the $3,500 of pension. We only have our couple $1,000s worth of Social Security, which means we have a $5,000 gap in retirement, not a $1,500 gap in retirement. And so if you do the math on that and you use the 4% rule, instead of $450,000, all of a sudden we need closer to $1.5 million saved inside of retirement accounts to live the exact same lifestyle. And so when we think about how a pension works in retirement and understanding how that works alongside how many dollars we need saved, it makes a huge difference on whether we have a pension or we don't. We can compare two households and come up with drastically different numbers for the same amount of expense that they actually need. So someone from our firm will help you walk through that calculation. But the next thing you're gonna wanna be thinking about, once you figure out how much money you need saved in retirement, now we gotta start thinking about how do we want those dollars invested. And I've made several different videos on how to invest dollars in retirement, and you can grab that video right here and you can kind of watch that next video.